All right, Ms. McKenna, did you want to start?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you. Commissioners, before we begin this meeting, I want to give you some information relating to the Sunshine Law so that you can, pardon me, make a decision about how you want to proceed, and also so that our record in this proceeding is very clear. There was some misinformation that was published to our public, and I want to be sure that that information is corrected on this record so that there is no question about what we are doing. Pardon me. You may recall I met with each of you with Ms. Miller when we passed out the packets, and I explained that state law had changed in regard to public meetings. I want to read from the bill that was adopted by the legislature. It is, yeah, I apologize. I just got a tickle. The bill is CS/HB 7223, and it was adopted and effective in 2012. What it amended was the section of the statute relating to exemptions from public meetings. And so the first piece of misinformation that was published was what competitive solicitation is in the statute. And I want to be sure that our record reflects how that term is defined by the legislature. Competitive solicitation means the process of requesting and receiving sealed bids, proposals, or replies in accordance with the terms of a competitive process, regardless of the method of procurement. So it is not limited to sealed bids. It is any type of procurement, and it is the replies that you get in terms of the method of procurement. In Section 3 of the bill, the legislature wrote its legislative intent, and I just want to put that into our record, and then you all can discuss how you want to proceed, and I will give you some legal suggestions in that regard. The legislature also finds that it is a public necessity that a meeting at which a negotiation with a vendor is conducted pursuant to a competitive solicitation, at which a vendor makes an oral presentation as part of a competitive solicitation, or at which a vendor answers questions as part of a competitive solicitation, be made exempt from public meeting requirements. In addition, it is a public necessity that any records presented at such meetings be temporarily exempt from public records requirements. The recording of the meeting and any such record shall be made available when the agency provides notice of an intended decision, or when the agency rejects all bids, proposals, or replies, and ultimately withdraws a reissued competitive solicitation. Protecting such meetings and temporarily protecting the recording and any records presented by a vendor at such meetings ensures that the process of responding to a competitive solicitation remains fair and economical for vendors while still preserving oversight after a competitive solicitation decision is made or withdrawn. It is unfair and inequitable to compel vendors to disclose to competitors the nature and details of their proposals during such meetings or through the minutes or records presented at such meetings. Such disclosure impedes full and frank discussion of the strengths, weaknesses, and value of a bid, proposal, or response, thereby limiting the ability of the agency to obtain the best value for the public. The public and private harm stemming from these practices outweighs the temporary delay in access to records related to the competitive solicitation. So I want our record to be clear that if it is your choice to follow the legislative intent, you are not violating the Sunshine Law as it was suggested that you would be. You certainly can have this meeting in the public, but it is contrary to what the legislative intent is as it relates to keeping the meeting exempt on a temporary basis. So I just want to be sure that our record is clear as to what your rights are as it relates to serving as the selection committee for this procurement.
Does it put us in a difficult position in any way with any of the vendors? Or if a vendor wants to remain, you know, that their information to remain private, do they have a right to request that?
I can't answer that, Mayor, because I don't know how the vendors would feel about it, but what I can say is that the legislature has changed the statute because it is their belief that it is a more fair process for the vendors if the meeting is temporarily closed so that the vendors can have frank discussions with the selection committee. The meeting is recorded, and then the public is able to see every word that was said during, it's not unlike our attorney-client session where we record the meeting.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Mitchell?
Claudia, who made the determination that this would be considered a competitive bid? How was that made?
Well, we did a procurement. We did a competitive solicitation.
No, well, a competitive solicitation would imply that there was price in here, which there is not.
No, it's a CCNA solicitation, so we don't
Correct.
do
so
that.
Who?
That's
how is it?
No,
how
that's
is it
covered.
determined?
The fact that this was an RFQ.
How? Right. We're asking for qualifications.
And
we
went,
didn't ask.
the commission determined.
Can I ask? I'm trying to get at the answer that I need. Okay.
The one that you want or the one that you need?
Both.
Okay.
We'll go with both.
Good.
Yeah. A request for qualifications, there's nothing in, I read all of the proposals. There's nothing in here that isn't on their own website. This is all public information. They didn't give us any secret idea that's patented that we could then take and create something really wonderful. None of that is in here. This is all just their qualification, their experience, who is on their team. There's no price in here. We're not even having that conversation right now. And I don't understand why there would be a competitive bid. Competitive bid would say, we're trying to build something. Tell us how you think we should build it, what the cost will be, what we will charge you to build it. You seal it, you put it in, and you're going to go with the lowest cost. That's not what we're doing. We're actually having a conversation with people who are experienced in water supply management and planning, and we're going to get to the best team to work with us. That's it.
And commissioners, let me make very clear. If you elect to have the meeting in the public, you can do that. You can do that. But I want this record to be clear that the fact that the selection committee was going to meet out of the public is not a violation of the Sunshine Law, and it was suggested publicly that that is the case, and it can't be the case. Our record has to be clear. If you all, as the City Commission, want to have it in the public, you can certainly do that, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you can't. But I don't want our public to think that the City of West Palm Beach attempted to violate the Sunshine Law.
And that's the bottom line, that there was no violation, that this, because it's a procurement, an official procurement, it falls under the auspices of that part of the law.
So, and it speaks to, does the state statute speak to elected officials who serve on the same board? I mean, procurement is one thing. Our laws that govern the way we behave is something different.
Well, they talk specifically about sunshine.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Okay, if I may. The section of the state law that says the governing body's meetings are in the public is Chapter 286. The legislature recognizes that a governing body frequently, in a lot of municipalities, the governing body is the sole selector. They don't have selection committees like we do because we're a larger organization. So the exemption applies to a governing, it is the public meeting statute.
That's what I'd like to see a copy of.
It's Chapter 286. That's
right. But specifically where it speaks to exempt from this is a governing body that otherwise is required to meet in the sunshine.
The Chapter 286 is the statute that says you have to meet in the sunshine. It is the Sunshine Law. And what this is an exemption. I'm asking
where it applies to your stated position on procurement and a selection committee. So when you have a body that has to meet in the sunshine, that is serving also as a selection committee, where does it speak to how they reconcile those two things?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I think it's Chapter 286 is the statute that says you as a governing body meet in the public. And what the legislature did was it gave you an exemption for this process, for this limited process.
Okay, I just
you
want
have
to,
two
can I see the
exemptions.
language? Just where
Well,
that,
this
where it gave us
is
that
just the
exemption.
bill. This is the bill. I'm happy to have you read the bill, but you have to look at the whole statute. The statute is your public meeting statute. It's the sunshine law. It's what tells you as elected officials you have to meet in the public. And the statute contains exemptions. It has an exemption for attorney-client sessions, and it says you all can meet out of the sunshine, and everything has to be taken down by a court reporter. This exemption says you have to have a recording of the procedure, and as soon as you're done, then that recording is made available. It's just like the attorney-client session. It's an exemption for the public meeting. I'm not asking you to make the meeting private. That's not my purpose in reading that information to you. I want to be sure that each of you are comfortable that when this meeting was initially scheduled as a selection committee exempt from the public meetings, that you were not violating the sunshine law, because the legislature has specifically given you an exemption to meet with these vendors in a non-public arena, provided that there is a recording made of that meeting. You can absolutely proceed. I just want to be sure that our record is clear that the city of West Palm Beach did not attempt to violate the law.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's the point we wanted to make. There was no nefarious attempted violation here. Ms. Pemsel, will you go over our charge today?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Thank
no,
you.
hold up, Mayor. I have my hand up.
Commissioner James.
I think two things we need to do here. One is take a poll of the commissioners, make sure we're all comfortable with how we're proceeding in the sunshine. And I think second, if possible, we need to see if there are any objections from any of the vendors before we go down this path. Can we do that?
Sure. Yes, Commissioner Moffett.
I have a question. Let's see. I think it's on. I have a question about the litigation. I know that there were several companies that talked about not disclosing some of the litigation. So I don't know if when we're doing this, you know, it didn't seem to me that anything that they mentioned in there was a problem that I could see. But they did mention that they didn't want it, that it wasn't supposed to go public. Is that going to be an issue with this?
Well, when we ask them to come in, they can certainly address that.
Are they all here? Or will we just do it as they're scheduled? Because I think we scheduled them at different times.
Yes,
did we
they're
not?
scheduled at different times. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Do we
Ms.
need a motion
McKenna-
from the commission?
Ms. McKenna, are we in any precarious position if we meet in public?
No.
So
I don't think
there's
so.
nothing.
I don't think
We're
so.
not doing anything harmful or wrong if we meet in public.
You're not violating the law if you meet in public.
Okay.
All you have is you have permission from the state legislature
To do this.
to do this under a process that is not in the public, provided that you make available to the public afterwards, just like we do with an attorney-client session, what you are doing.
All right.
But I think, you know, I mean, the proposers could object, but I don't think they would have some basis for making some kind of a claim against the city. If they're all going to be in the public, they're all going to be in the public.
Okay. Commissioner James, do you still want to?
Well, I'd just like to move that I would like to proceed with this meeting in the sunshine.
Thank you. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.